Reef beef is a conversation between Aquarius and look, we don't censor our words on here. We don't do it egregiously. We don't curse egregiously, but we're just talking like we talk. So sometimes cuss words come out. So I just want you to know that. So in case you're watching this with the Pope or your grandmother or your children, and I don't know, a lot of those people don't like to cuss. So I just want you to know that in case you don't get in an awkward social situation. So this is Reef Beef.
My name is Richard.
My name is Ben.
And today on a very, very very, very special episode of Reef Beef, because we're recording at night-ish, we are going to be talking about a disaster in the enemy tank. Rich has a beef. Ben has a new client that's a pushover. And we have a special guest, Andy Rhyne, who's going to tell us about the second annual Reef Retreat, which we're very excited. This show is sponsored by saltwateraquarium.com.
Champion Lighting and Supply.
And powered by PolypLab. Welcome to Reef Beef. Hey, Ben and Andy, how are you guys doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. It's the first cool night here in Rhode Island, so fall's coming, which is nice.
Ooh, nice. And for people who don't know, Ben, why don't you tell people who Andy Rhyne is, or Andrew Rhyne, if we're being special?
Andy is actually from a different planet, and on that planet, he is one of the dumbest people on that planet, which is crazy because when he came here, he's one of the smartest people on the planet, and he lives in the island of Rhodes, which a lot of people just call Rhode Island. And he works at a facility that he breeds stuff. Roger Williams University.
Nice.
Excellent.
I got the university part. I'm sorry, because that facility was awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. We're building some new systems right now and adding onto our algae production and kind of renovating that. So there'll be a whole new section there. By next summer it'll all be done.
Well, let's just go back in time now so people know what's going on. We
Sure.
Last year in June was the first ever Reef Retreat, and it was a nice success. We're very happy with that. And the council, the informal council that helps Andy put it together. It's really all on Andy's and Lena's shoulders. We just say things and then it happens. But it was so successful. We're doing it again. So how successful was it? And why are we doing it again?
Yeah, I think it was really amazingly successful. It's one of these things when this started, I think June 2024, when Masna collapsed, and it was sure that MACNA wasn't going to happen. I just kind of messaged Rich on Messenger, and I said, "Hey, we should do something."
Yeah. So there was a show called MACNA, and that's been around since the late 90s. And that became like the de facto show for everything reef and marine aquarium related, right? And it grew and it grew and it grew and it got super huge. And there's a huge trade show and there were talks and it was gigantic. And then it ate itself. And then we had nothing. And Andy and I were like, we should do something. But let's forget about the show, the trade show part, because there's a million trade shows now in the aquarium world.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a big part of how we decided to go about Reef Retreat was, we kind of felt it out for about 3 or 4 months trying to decide what to do, and I think Rich was right on the spot when he said we shouldn't do a trade show, right? Because there's just, if you want a good trade show, they're everywhere, right? And they're really good ones, and so and the infrastructure and everything to do that, I think creates a lot of challenges, and having a university be able to help us put this on makes it really expensive to have just a conference. Conferences are usually really expensive to have, and
it makes it really inexpensive.
Well, it does to have the university, facilities and our fabulous food and our dorm rooms and all that makes it inexpensive to put something on that normally would be really expensive to do just with a speaker event at a hotel or conference center or something like that. That's normally why you have a lot of trade shows at these things, is to help kind of offset those costs. And so I think they're opposed to each other, right? The trade shows, or the vendors want the people in the at the trade show, obviously, because they paid for that and they're there to make money. And then a lot of people come to the events to see talks, and they, so those were in direct conflict. So I think by offering a conference that is for hobbyists and professionals, that is kind of tailored to the kind of today's modern reefs, is what was needed.
Yeah, so we wanted to the idea was to have something that's conferencey rather than expo-y. And so there's talks, and it's also a shared experience. So it's not huge. Possibly down the line it might get bigger, but we're trying to be very careful and not outgrow it. Trying to let it be what it is, and we've only done it once, so we want to make sure we know what it is before we start pulling at it too much. But it's a shared experience that we all go through. So everyone is together for the weekend, pretty much. We all go to the same talks. So all the conversations, there's never like oh, you missed that. It's like, no, we were all in the same place at the same
we
time.
might have missed it because it was at 3 a.m. and I wasn't there. But no, I think having a conference that is structured in a way that everybody can be together really is, to me, the best conferences I've been to. So I go to sometimes 3 to 5 conferences a year, depending on what's happening in the scientific community. And my favorite conferences are the small society conferences that are not multi-section. So you're not running around all the time trying to go from talk to talk to talk. And so having something where everybody's together, I think was a natural fit. And then keeping the size down so we could pilot this thing and try it and see if it works, and then grow it a little bit and make sure we don't grow it too much. And then we've got some really amazing sponsors that have been so supportive of this. And I think pretty much everybody re-upped this year for the most part. I think we're waiting on 1 or 2. They're kind of waiting on budgets, but everybody was so excited, because even the vendors, it was so funny, but our sponsors, not really, they weren't, selling any, we don't sell anything at the conference, but they enjoyed actually getting to sit in on the talks and be in the conference, because normally they never get to do that. And so, we had, our sponsors were able to sit in the talks, and then when between times of the talks and lunch and things like that, people could go meet with the sponsors. People could, sit down with Julian Sprung or, and Todd and other people, and really kind of talk to them for a long time, and get to spend time with them more than just see their products at a booth. I mean, we have a nice little booth set up for our sponsors, so they can bring and demonstration products or materials and kind of set things up, but it doesn't require them to bring in like 5 people if they don't want to, and set a big booth up or anything. So
hey, Reef Beef, wait.
saltwateraquarium.com, saltwateraquarium.com. When you need stuff for your aquarium, go to saltwateraquarium.com. It's the Wild West days here.
It sounds like it. Saltwateraquarium.com has been with Reef Beef since before there was a Reef Beef. They got all kinds of stuff for all kinds of things that you need. Pretty much anything you need, they're going to have. They ship it to you quick. Why, Ben? Why does it seem to ship so quickly?
It does, because they have 3 secret locations underneath mountains across the United States. They share space with NORAD, and they put it on Santa's sleigh, and they would just deliver it. They'll deliver it. It's quite common to have things delivered to you from saltwateraquarium.com before you even knew that you wanted them.
Yeah. So check them out. Check out their app at saltwateraquarium.com. Check out their educational content with Hillary Jaffe and Lord Mark Callahan. saltwateraquarium.com.
Hey, Reef Beef, wait.
Man, one of the biggest parts to me is the hanging out.
Yeah.
Out of Lord knows how many conferences I've been to. There's all, this one. It has all their pros and cons about where we could hang out and how it went. But, it's crazy because of most of these conferences or these trade shows, it's at the hotel bar and sometimes that's great, but sometimes we've gotten like shushed out of there and kicked out of there at a certain time of the
I can't
night.
imagine why.
Yeah, a little ruckus. No, but the Reef Retreat last year, and where it's at, it's I can't even begin to say how perfect it is in that there is no one else in this thing but us. You could,
Yeah, and that's very intentional, Ben.
yeah,
We booked I literally asked for a weekend when no one was on campus. First of all, I didn't want people normal people having to intermingle with beefers,
abnormal
because
people.
that could be, no telling what happens there. But
Yeah.
um
Lawsuits.
yeah. So but we have this really couple awesome spaces in that really nice dorm that has, these big great rooms in it that are kind of, you could think of them like kind of like small ballrooms or something like that, right? That are have these beautiful windows overlooking the bay, and they're that's what they're for. They're open spaces, they're common spaces, right? And so um and they're set up for people to hang out, and and so it allows you just to kind of be right there and set your own bar up that doesn't cost very much money.
Yeah.
And
BYOB.
So
yeah.
a couple of the things that made this conference, we said we should just go for it. And that's kind of the culture of the conference is, how do we say yes to things rather than overthink it so it doesn't happen? And Andy was like, well, I've got a university that'll let us do it. And there's a weekend where nobody's there. And we've got dorms so we can all stay there. So if that wasn't mentioned, we're all staying together. And it's really like, we're used to conferences being destination conferences where they try to get as many people as they can to go by inviting the people who would attend the conference and their families who would do things in the area of the conference. We're less interested in that. This is like really the word retreat is really the right word. It's like, no, you're going for the weekend to talk with nerds. So all you do, nerds you love. So all you do is you just end up going to the dorm room to flop down and sleep. And then you wake up and you go to take a shower and then go and lock yourself out of the room if you're Ben. And then you just go to where the breakfast is, and then boom, the day's going on. And you don't really have to go, it's not like it's a destination conference. The conference is the destination. So
You have no great reason to stay in the room that you slept in. It's just for sleeping. And then,
yeah, and the mattress was really comfortable. We did laundry too. I had to do some laundry. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a fully outfitted facility, and we've learned some things for next year to make things a little bit smoother, and so that we have we had some little bumps with check-in and a little other things because people's flights got delayed because Sanjay was at the event, and
that'll do it.
and so and so people were coming in really late, and so but we've got all that stuff kind of noted and ironed out, and we'll have all that taken care of. So we'll have somebody there 24 hours a day to make sure that things are smooth. And
the conferences, at first people were like, that's expensive. I think the lowest package is $499 or
something like that.
Something
$500
like
or $600. Yeah.
And people were like, oh my God. And we're like, no, that includes the conference and room and food. And
I don't think people people I think have trouble like putting all those parts and pieces together when they go someplace, but the food we have is really quite fabulous, right? And it was down a level because they were renovating our dining hall all summer, so they had to move our dining hall temporarily into the gymnasium and some things. So next year it's going to be even better, right? And so
that's freaking me out because I wanted to say, let me just say something about the food that has nothing to do with aquariums. But so I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I'm not necessarily picky, but I like to eat healthy things. And I'm just telling you that the food, if you're saying that was downgraded, that was excellent. As a matter of fact, we just came back from a conference, and generally when you stay in a hotel, you're eating at the places around the hotel. And let me tell you something, people like, $4.99 is expensive. You're going to spend several $100s in overpriced food that's not so great at a hotel. And so that doesn't match. Yeah. It's great food.
So the thing about the dining hall is that they are set up to be able to handle anyone's diet preferences or needs or allergies or whatever, and so we can have at an event, we can have, people who do not eat vegetables to people who only eat vegetables, right? And so, I mean, it's so easy to do, and we don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about those things. You don't have to worry about all that sort of thing. So it makes it really easy to do these events, and they're pros at running events too.
Yeah.
Like, a
Or
couple hundred
even
people, it's not a big deal. So
even people like Richard that just don't even like food at all.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to test it this time. I'm going to say I can only eat saltines and marmalade and see if they can accommodate.
Guys, I'm
that.
allergic to fiber of all types.
Yeah.
Soluble and insoluble.
Please, my friend, he wants to keep his feet.
Hey, Reef Beef. Wait.
Champion lighting and supply. Champion. I don't know if that's not a good way to advertise, is having a whiny voice.
No, it's great. Advertising is just getting
It's
people
the
to
jingle.
remember. It's remembering your name. They don't have to remember it happier. They just know that they've heard Champion Lighting and Supply somewhere.
I'm really hoping, if someone gets Todd on the phone or sees him at a trade show and they please sing Champion Lighting and Supply and just make it as pathetic sounding as possible.
Yeah, Todd's great. Todd's an aquarist. So if when I have questions, I call Todd because Todd knows freaking everything.
And don't forget, if you have a maintenance company or a store, they do offer wholesale. So I get almost all my dry goods from Champion.
Yeah,
So.
and they're a generous company. They sponsor us. They sponsor some other content makers. We content makers? I don't know.
What do we do?
They sponsor a whole lot of live shows. So
and they stuff their boxes with shredded up other boxes,
which we love so much because we care about the planet.
Yes.
So check them out at
Champion Lighting and Supply, championlightingsupply.com.
Yeah, baby.
Hey, Reef Beef. Wait.
One of the things that kills conferences or shows is logistics. And so Andy was like, wait, I work at a university that has all the logistics. And we were like, yeah, but it's in Rhode Island and the day it's available. And we were like hemming and hawing about that. And we went, you know what? It doesn't matter. There's always hemming and hawing. There's never a perfect answer. There's always conflicts. There's always reasons people can't do a particular date. This is the date and the place that makes sense. By the way, it's June 5th through the 7th. That's the main conference that we've announced so far. And so it's the 5th through the 7th, although there may be some, I guess the 5th is the day the extra thing might happen.
Yeah.
But there's a pre-thing that's probably going to happen. And we'll drive up and visit Andrew Sandler and Joe Iulo and that school. I can't remember the name of the magnet school that's got that.
The sound school or the
yeah. Yeah, that's going to make you go, my tanks are terrible if this is what a high school is doing. So we probably are going to do something like that beforehand. Most people are saying till Monday because, the people just want to hang out. So you got people get there Thursday. So you got a bunch of nights to hang out, which is the thing that we love so much about conferences is hanging out with people. Then you get a few days of doing stuff as well, which is good. And we had no problem, although we were worried about getting enough people to come. But, people will come or they won't come. And so we were like, let's just do it. And we just did it. And it was great. And so this year, are there more people, Andy? Are there fewer people? Is there, what can you tell us about the changes?
Yeah, so we're going to increase the number of people a little bit, right? So we'll go up to about 100, I think about 100 and about not just short of 200 total people. So including the speakers and the sponsors and everything like that. So we're about 50% sold out or so, I think, somewhere in there. We just opened sales to non version 1.0 attendees and people who didn't sign up. So we just now kind of open sales up to the general public. And so I think
and that's just now. So by the time this airs, who knows? It might be sold out.
So we are recording this on a Thursday. It is my understanding, having discussed this with Snowman, that this will go out on Sunday.
It depends on how much Rich messes up and how much editing has to be done.
We know how much Rich messes up. It's legion. But Snowman was like, get this done. So this usually doesn't happen on Reef Beef. So this is kind of like hot. This is like what's going on in the world now. So it's pretty exciting. Tell what should people expect, or should we hear from Ben? Ben was more of an attendee than involved in the making of the show. So Ben, besides keep your key card with you when you go into the shower, because Ben locked himself out of his room. It was awesome.
Well, no, like it's a dorm, so it's like multiple key card doors you have to go through. So don't be a dumbass.
Yeah. Tell people what did you like about what was the show? What did you like, and why are you going back?
I'm going back because you're making me. No,
Yeah, this is true.
no, it's incredible. It's like I sort of, Richard is right here. No,
That's
but
me.
yeah, Richard went off and did this, and I had no say so. But so I kind of went in blind. I sort of knew what I thought it was going to be, but and I've said this in an earlier episode, but that like it seemed to me like what Magna might have been a long time ago.
Mm.
Just the meat and potatoes without all the. I get so tired, me personally, of like commercialization, and when something gets really huge, it loses its soul. And you might have came in the tail end of Macna's, but if you had been to some earlier ones, it was like so much more focused on education and the hang versus like some giant vendor hall. And I know that stuff can be important to some trade shows, but it's just like meh. The other thing too is like you were saying, Richard, like, I'm looking at the speaker, oh, I want to be sure and see Joe, and like, oh yeah, I got to see Richard. And then but on this one, it's like you're all in there. So it's almost like you're almost held captive. You're almost held against your will. No, but
Well, and we thoughtfully put the speakers together too. So what we did, and I think some people have noticed this. They asked that people have asked me if we did it on purpose, right? And we
Yeah.
so what I love about a great symposium or conference is when things build on themselves, and I'm not listening to the same introduction 3 or 4 times or something like that. So and because I'm a university and I've been here for quite some time, and I have a lot of friends and colleagues in this kind of general field that don't intersect with the aquarium trade at all, but do amazing research that really intersects with the aquarium trade. They themselves don't really think of it that way. But I'm always thinking about how Cody and Jen's work and everything kind of intersects with aquariums, right? And so Dr. Jen Bowden gave a really just amazing talk on microbiomes, and she's been doing work in with Michael Tulsi, my longtime collaborator and colleague, in public aquariums on the, they look at a stingray's top and a stingray's bottom, the top side and the bottom side, the ventral and dorsal, to look at the microbiomes associated with just differences in size. So I asked her to kind of give a talk from that scale all the way up to ecosystems. And so people could understand the variations they're seeing and kind of set up microbiomes. And then I had Cody come in, right, and give a talk on coral microbiomes, right? And so that kind of built on itself. And then for coral spawning, right, we had, I basically handed that off to Rich and said, we're going to have Dr. Kevin Erickson. We're going to have Dr. Nikki Fogarty, who's a rock star at UNCW, who's been, spawning Atlantic corals in that lab in a recirculating system. And then we're going to have Rich talk about doing it in his house. So we went from a home to a lab to a whole country that's got like 500 people working on it. So to me, that kind of growth allows people to kind of get engaged in a topic and kind of look at the topic as a whole, even if they weren't really familiar with it in a way that really deeply, they don't have to pop in and out of it. So we're going to do that again this year a little bit. We'll try our best to do that. And we're trying to, develop those thematic themes and set it up so people kind of have that experience of the talks kind of evolving as they go along.
Yeah. So it's not just a one shot. It's like groupings of 2 or 3 talks. So you can really kind of get yourself into the topic and kind of base yourself and have a little bit longer to understand what's going on and figure out your questions.
Well, and it was like starting off at a 30,000-foot view and then like drilling down from there.
Yeah. Or, and again, I think like the set of coral spawning talks we did, that to me was so great because, I remember when Jamie Craggs first did that, right? And I have been for me, manipulating photothermal periods to get animals to spawn is kind of second nature for fish, right? But watching him apply those techniques and using the literature and what we know about corals in a tank and then making it happen. And then I happened to be in London shortly after that and went by to see his facility and was just, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This space he's got is all perfectly laid out, but it's so tight and small that you could do this at your house or any lab. And sure enough, Rich just starts doing it at his house, right?
Yeah.
And so I saw it as this is definitely where things are headed, right? And it's just going to be a matter of time before people do it. And I think Rich is able to talk to people in a way about how he's doing it. And it will start, you'll see this start growing. You're going to see this grow. And it's like the same thing I saw when hobbyists started breeding aquarium fish, right? Like it's the same, like you've got to have a lot of dedication, some time on your hands, some equipment, and some know-how, and some ingenuity to kind of make things work in your own environment. But as I think we go forward, that knowledge transfer that's going to happen is going to be really transformational. So that day of that morning of those talks was kind of that really awesome. You can do this out of your house. Here's how we think about this from a hobby standpoint, and Nikki Fogarty comes in and says, this is how we're doing it in the lab, and this is some of the things we're looking at. Here's some of the intricacies that's happening with coral settlement, and how the larvae are behaving, and color and all these really interesting things they're able to look at. And then Kevin comes in and talks about it from the standpoint of how do we put 300 million out on the reef, right? And so with Ames's work, so that setup I think is the proper way to try to do things, and it takes a lot of trust for you to be able to bring scientists like that into a conference like this, because a lot of them don't have daily interactions with the aquarium trade. I'm kind of a bit different in that environment, is that I interact with the public aquariums a lot, and then the hobby trade a ton too, and always have. And so I'm kind of just familiar with how everything works and how people talk and that sort of thing. But a lot of scientists are not. And so I think to get them to come in and share that knowledge with this group, because this group is really enthusiastic too. They're like the most enthusiastic group of people that are listening to these talks they'll run into. So I think that's that interaction between them getting their grad students coming up, or them getting to talk and listen to people how they're doing things, is really good for them as well. And so that trade-off I think is quite special.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Ben.
That's what I thought was cool too, is this wasn't like yet another like hobbyist, which there's nothing wrong with that, but yet another hobbyist talking about something. It was actual marine biologists, and that was incredible. And I wonder, like, not, I wouldn't put them on the spot, but like I really wonder how they came away. That were they, did they have fun doing that with us hobbyists, or?
Yes and no, right? I mean, I think
mostly yes.
Yeah, mostly yes. I mean, honestly, mostly people had a really great time. They, and I think they really appreciated that their knowledge that they have was really useful to people. But then at the same time, it takes a lot of hard, dedicated work to get data on this stuff, right? And then I think you see this every day in the hobby, where people take a little bit of data and a lot of anecdote and kind of just drive it in a direction and make a product, and then it may or may not work, or it may not matter if it works or not, right? So, and I mean, that to a scientist can drive people nuts, right? When you see that type of thing happen, and that's just industry. So I think it's just the way the industry is, and I don't think you can change that. I think it's just part of the hobby, and so, but it's we're going to do it. We're going to kind of try to follow that same thing. We've got some really great scientists coming. I'm really excited. Joe Pollock's coming next summer. So, a lot of hobbyists will not know who he is, but he's a coral sponge ecologist, coral reef, works at coral reefs and sponges. So he's a sponge ecologist, and he's been a hobbyist since he was a kid. Right. Yeah. And so he'll bring a completely different dynamic to the conference and talk about a topic that people are really becoming interested in, which is dissolved organic carbon, and how those cyclings and stuff impact
But
reefs. So
this is the exposure we need. This is exposure you as a hobbyist need, because it's not I love my own industry and I also hate my own industry at the same time, but we get so much to where we're listening to all this marketing bullshit from some company, and it's like we need to get back to listening to people out there in the field doing actual work. Not that it always pertains to it, but we just get filled with so much marketing bullshit and bottles of magical whiz water and all this stuff. And
well,
Where is it?
but
Where's
but to be honest with you, the way I look at it, the way I look at it too, though, is I have watched the hobby provide things to scientists that
it's
they would
true.
not be able. I've watched both of it happen, right? And so, like, the idea of controlling coral spawning in in tanks from, in London or in San Francisco or wherever you might be, that only is possible because of the aquarium industry, right? That is not possible really at the way it has been done, and the way people are working at a small scale and things. What Ames
Yeah.
is doing is kind of really different because they're at such a different scale, but the smaller scale work is really only possible because of aquarium hobbyists and professional aquarists. That's the only
Well, and
reason it's possible.
it's
So
sort of just because we just do stuff and we don't have red tape. And,
that's right. Yeah.
sometimes the things we do, a
Well,
research scientist would be like, that's a little
Well,
loose.
husbandry's really different often.
Yeah.
Husbandry's purely observational, which is an extremely important area of science, right? You're making, Ben, whether you realize it or not, every day you're working on tanks, you're making observations, right?
Yeah.
And so you might not test something empirically or actually do an experiment on something, but you're making a series of observations and then changing your habits based on those observations, right? And
Yeah.
so what success you know that when you walk into somebody's disaster that somebody else set up for them, in your head, like, this is what's required to get to success,
Yeah.
right? And that's based on your observations, right, over a long period of time. And so hobbyists and especially professional aquarists are really good at that side of science, right? They're very good at observational work. And so I think linking that up with experimental people that can validate, like, why things are happening, like the exact, because oftentimes we don't understand exactly why something's happening until it's been demonstrated, right? And people can, and that the why can be really hard, right? Because you sometimes have to tear apart a whole series of molecular interactions or something, to get down to the actual why something's happening. And to actually get causality, it's really difficult to do that and to validate. But being able to replicate something in your tanks, or being able to repeat, like taking, a tank from kind of just to amazing, being able to do that time after time after time, definitely means that you have very fine-tuned skills of observation and being able to, so it's not like a bottle of magic stuff that you would just put into
Reef
the tank.
SIBO.
Reef SIBO, yes. So
it's fascinating to me because having been on all sides of this, the hobbyists think they have all the answers and that the public aquarists are doing it wrong. And the public aquarists think they all have all the answers and that the scientists and that the hobbyists are doing it wrong. And the scientists think that they know what's going on and that the hobbyists and the public aquarists are doing it wrong. There is some interaction between in some smaller areas, but at all of the levels, I've seen people holding up their nose at the other arms. And and that's terrible. I think we all have stuff to offer each other. And that was kind of one of the coolest things at last year's Reef Retreat was when somebody said, where a researcher said, well, we work with people from the Florida Aquarium all the time. And I said, those aren't the people in this room. Those aren't hobbyists. Those are professional aquarists. It's a totally different group. And we do need to all, at some level, be talking to each other so we're not wasting each other's time all the time.
No, and we were able to bring in, there was a good sizable number of professional aquarists that came to Reef Retreat, right? So I mean, we've brought Sarah Stevens in, who's worked with corals, like, and thinking about, like, health indicators and, like, how you just
We were just hanging out with her.
work. Yeah, amazing work, right? And what a great to be in an invertebrate like specialized place. That's a fabulous place to be able to work. So
Sarah Stevens at the Butterfly Pavilion in Denver.
yeah.
Very cool place. If you've got a chance to go check it out.
Hey, Reef Beef. Wait.
PolypLab. When you got a lab and you got your polyps, you go to PolypLab. They got everything for it. That's
Wow. I
yeah.
am so glad you did that alone.
The power of
The
advertising.
power of PolypLab. Yeah, spawning season is coming out, so I am making sure I've got all my foods ready to go for baby corals in the next few months. And one of those is the reef roids, because I like the name roids. It makes me laugh every time I feed. It is definitely one of the staple foods that I feed to my baby corals.
The new client that I got is doing there's getting a new skimmer and we're doing like a filtration overhaul. And so I am taking 6 seasoned Genesis blocks from PolypLab from my house and putting it into their filter, and we got, instant biological activity from those Genesis blocks.
Yeah, so check them out wherever good products are sold, like saltwateraquarium.com or Champion.
And lighting and supply. PolypLab. Thank you, PolypLab.
Hey, Reef Beef. Wait.
Working on the talks is like, so we've done the hard part now, where we've got it up and running and we're ready to go for the next year, which is we're way ahead of what we did for last year. So we're excited. And now we're starting to our next meeting is coming up on the 10th, where we're going to start really focusing on the speakers. We've got a lot of speakers lined up already, but we want to make sure we put the same kind of attention to it that we did last year, because we think that's
Yeah,
kind of important.
I'm trying really hard to bring. We're talking to someone about flow, because Rich mentioned, I think, on a previous Reef Beef podcast that he wanted to talk about flow.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of work about flow this year.
Yeah, and so I found some fluid mechanics people that,
Oh, cool.
yeah, that I mean, if we can get that set up correctly, which I'm hopeful we can, if we can get that set up correctly, I think having those kind of dovetailed together, I think people will understand, like, like how flow and fluids actually work a little better.
Yeah.
Like you can walk up to a tank if you know what you're doing and create a wave, and that interaction in a tank, and it will change the tank, right? And so, but understanding how the fluids move around things, I think will help people just that much better, right? And so we're trying to set that up, so we have that kind of set up. And the awesome thing this year is that Alex from Abiz is gonna come, and
Oh, nice.
and so I remember when he walked into New England Aquarium, because I was up there a couple days a week when I first started, and he came in with one of his big wave cannons, right? And he basically just set it in a tank and dropped it off and said, if you like it, you can, right? I watched it changed the whole tank, like almost instantly. Like literally it changed the tank. I mean, it was just wow, right? It was just so amazing how much that changed the tank and how little power that thing used, right? And I think that was, I don't know, 2010, 11
Flow
or something like that.
Flow
right?
is more important than
And
water.
Instant flow.
It's just
The right flow.
it's right. Yeah, if you can provide, and so I think having that level of information and trying to get that to a group of people that really get it and can come up to speed really quick and have a discussion for a day about that, and kind of think about some new things, and I think that's a really sweet spot in the conference.
A great thing at a conference like this, well, I mean, it does it to all of us. Like we go there and we get home, and a lot of us have been in this industry or hobby for a long time, and sometimes you're lacking in your passion or whatever, but you go to one of these things and you learn things that you want to go back and like implement into your tank, or if you work at a public aquarium or whatever, you come away with knowledge that you're like, oh, and it sort of lights that fire again, keeps the fire going.
Yeah. And so I think we're going to try to do some things this upcoming conference that are good, just like we did last time, but we're going to try to add a little bit of layers to the onion a little bit, and add something on the Friday that I think will excite people, and then we'll see how it goes. But I'm really excited. I think it's going to work out well. And Lena, you know, I mean, people are like, wow, this thing ran really well. That's all Lena, right? She's
And Lena is
just
so on it this year. It's
yeah,
like I go to do something and I always check my email first to see if Lena got to it first.
yeah.
Because Lena is so on top of everything this year. It's amazingly wonderful.
Yeah, so you know, we've got like a whole year to think about it and actually get it done this time because we started right after we started 2 weeks after the other one was done. So I think we've got everything kind of ironed out. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully this is something we can continue to do that works out. And I was really happy because we did not go broke. It's like,
Yeah.
I was really happy that we were not negative. I was like, as long as we're not negative, right? Because the university, the one thing they do ask is, and you provide your GL number for the overages, which is their way of saying that where's the pot of money in case you don't have enough money to pay for this, that we can charge your account. So so we were really lucky that things went really well, and I think we're in a much better position this year to kind of make things a little bit better, the little things that make things better for people.
And if we are in the black, I guess is what it's called. If we do have extra money that gets rolled over for the next conference, or it goes to Andy's lab.
No, yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
We're just rolling it over to the next year to try to keep this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not like we're in this miracle position where breaking even is just fine.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool.
It would, I mean, that's sort of business talk, but it would make sense to me, like to have an account that is a Reef Retreat account that acts.
Well, we do. We have one. Yeah, we have. So that's what we've established, and so we're able to basically kind of maintain a little, and that allows us to pay for things up front that we had to wait on. And so we'll try to make things a little bit smoother for people, and
what if, God forbid, one of them was a little rough, and then it doesn't have to be like, oh, one bad conference and we're out of here.
Yeah, no, it's you can't have that happen either, right? So it had to be really good, or people wouldn't want to come back. And so and again, I think it was it's the right level of a conference at the right time, and and at some point we might be able to set it up so we are catering to different groups of people, but right now everybody's together, and we did have some fairly newer hobbyists at the conference. It's not really set up for somebody who just got into keeping aquariums. It's set up for somebody who's had aquariums for a long time and wants to really kind of get into the details. But they had a really good time as well.
That was cool, because I guess metaphorically I was like, Reef Retreat is sort of like, I guess I'm okay in saying this, but it's like the deep end of the swimming pool.
Yeah, I thought of it as not, it's not that you have to have experience, but you have to enjoy kind of more in-depth conversations. There's not a talk about how to set up your aquascape. We're not doing that, because that's not who this is for. This is for we're trying to cover stuff that doesn't get covered when there is money to be made, so we have to make choices about what's going to attract the most people.
Like
we're trying to really embrace the concepts that and the discussion and the networking. That's kind of what it's about. We're working, and
like I said, it's very organic, right? So this whole thing is really came together because we were really concerned that we would lose what MACNA was to most of the longtime hobbyists and professionals, which was the place to go and hang out with people you see every year, and be able to see some really great talks from some new people and some people who've been around a while, and then see kind of the latest products and stuff. So we're still doing that. We just don't have the trade show or the raffle. We aren't doing a raffle, right?
Right.
So
we got some new ways to give talks, like the zoonotic diseases talk has got a different bend to it than you've probably ever seen. So we're trying to make it interesting as well as informative, as well as just good. We don't have to beat last year. We just have to have it be as good, you know, so people want to come again. And that's kind of really, really freeing, where we're, you know, we're not out there, you know, beating the pavement going, please come, please come, please come. We're actually a little worried it's going to sell out, and we're going to have to say, hey, we're at capacity.
Well, we had to do that last time too.
Yeah.
And
Well,
people were a little bit, it just happened a little later, but yeah, I think it, it'll get very close to the capacity or sell out because again, it's not that many people, right? Like
Yeah.
170, 100, 150, 175 people or so, is really not that many people. And then we're, fairly far down that road. So, if people are interested, I would encourage them to really consider buying a package sooner than later, right?
yeah. And if you see on Facebook somebody saying that they have tickets for sale, they don't.
That same person did it last. I don't know if it was the same person exactly.
No, that's a scam. It's just
it's a spoof. It's a spoof account.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was like, we would refund your money.
Yeah, at first I was like, at first I typed, hey, email info@reefretreat.org about this. We can't just swap them around. And then I was like, oh wait, this is that scam again. And so I started deleting them.
That's great. But because I was like, we have the room set up. So this is it was really funny.
Yeah.
Is the talks still in that appellate court or whatever?
It was a requirement to do it again by the crowd. The crowd basically said that it shall be in there, and that's why we're limited at 198 people or something like that.
Yeah.
Do they have a bigger one on the facility?
No, that's our largest. Okay, so we're a small university that kind of caters on the small classroom side of things. So we have no large auditoriums that are right. So we legitimately have we have a space we can turn into a conference space, which is in our field house, which is where the cafeteria was last year. But that gets a little bit sterile. Right. And
it's not as fun as that courtroom.
No, and the acoustics in a trial or an mock appellate courtroom for our law school, and everything is set up really, really well compared to, say, a big, gigantic space. Right.
Well,
so I think
and
the quality
seats,
of what
the seats and the tables are comfortable to sit at. And each place has a plug, if you need to plug something in, and it's just it's a courtroom, so it feels really interesting and fun, and it just feels like an exciting place to be. And I couldn't be happier that at the last minute we had to switch to the courtroom.
I can see the future. I can see the future, and Reef Retreat is going to become so big that Roger Williams is going to build a stadium, and it's going to be called Reef Beef Stadium.
It's funny because we literally made that change the morning of the conference, I think, or the morning before the conference. And because we had dinner in this really nice foyer of one of our academic buildings, right? This glass walls near the bay. And we were going to have the conference there, but then it got so big so quick, right, that the audio and everything and the AV stuff just was not going to work for that many people. And so that morning I walked in looking at how many spaces and everything we had to have, and I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. We're just going to move it. And the AV guy was totally with me. He was like, oh, absolutely, this has to be done. And the conference person was like, you're going to do what? And I was like, yeah, we're just going to move that over there today. And because it would not have been amazing, right? But it was just too many people.
Did you like in what capacity did you have to let the college know, or they were just fine with it?
Again, we booked a weekend with no one on campus, right? And so
he's a genius.
And the thing is like, if we had been doing this 15 years and we had a little hook, snag or something, people would be like, that happens. But if it was going to be a smaller, more intimate event, that space would have been perfectly fine because people would have been up, but when it grew and we got to close to 150 people or something like that, the space was not going to work. And that happened, fairly quickly. And so, it's just, you have to make things work. And so that was just my mindset of let's just make it work. And so Now we know where we're going to be. We know we know everything. We're going to cap it at this many people, so we can't get any bigger than that and not use the field house. So that makes logistics a lot easier. We'll be able to have our happy hours and stuff over there a little bit better and do some things with the vendors and set some spaces up for them a little bit so they can have more time with wine and beer and things like that for people.
Yeah, so the vendors set up outside of the where we do the event, right, where we do the talks, and they just set up a table and put some stuff on the table, and then between sessions they go out there and hang out there. But mostly they were hanging out at their tables before breakfast. I mean, before the morning session, just after lunch, and just after the last session of the day. And otherwise they were in the talks. And it was great because, one of the big positives about our industry is that the people who run these companies are aquarists as well. So we want their input. So this time we had all of their input during the Q's and A's and during the talks, which you normally don't get that. You don't get to tap their experience because they're out, manning the booth or humaning the booth. So I love the whole thing. And then, then everybody's invited to whatever the after hours thing is, whether it's outside or downstairs, or there's an official after event. And then there's the unofficial, but the unofficial is really just, let's all go to one of these big rooms and hang out, and everyone is invited. We'll make sure that everybody understands that completely. It's like,
I never thought about that. That's cool too, because at some of the conferences or whatever, some people get whisked away for little special dinners or this and that. If you go to this,
we don't have any of that. Yeah.
If you go to this, you're at all of it.
Yeah, everybody, wants to hang out with the people there. That's the point. The speakers all want to talk to the other people, and so that's what it is. And so there were people who were up way too late, hanging out in that room, eating and talking. And I think it's very cool. But here's the super awesome part about being in the dorms. Because it would come around 2 a.m. and I'd be like overwhelmed and spectruming out, and it's like, I gotta go. It's like, oh, my room is around the corner. Bye, and just go lay down for half an hour and come back, or just crash out. Just
maybe you wake up and you look around the corner, and you're like, them some bitches are still talking.
Yeah, we also had like there's these pods where there's like 6 rooms in a pod.
Yeah,
and I didn't actually see people in the pod with me till like the last morning. And it was like, oh, I didn't know you were in here. I didn't know you were in here.
Oh,
that just goes to show that none of us spent any time in there. It was just a flop house. It was great.
Like Mr. Healthy Eater too. The cool thing is the pod has a fridge in it. So one thing that we did is we went to a local grocery store and I got like carrots and peas, and so just in case I was getting hungry in between stuff.
All right, and there's tours of Andy's lab.
Yeah.
Which is Andy's lab is great. Let's give the details. When is it, and where do people go to sign up? We probably should have done this at the beginning, but
now. Well, I mean, so our website, is reefretreat.org, and it's been redone. So we put that together. Kathy and I put the first one together. She did a lot of work on that, and then we redid the site. So now we have John Robbins has put together a really nice WordPress site. And so that site will give you the information, right? And so shows you everything that's there, the speakers and everything, makes that really easy to see. And then if you want tickets, you can go onto that site and you should read about the different packages and stuff that's available, right? And then from there, there's a purchase ticket button, which will take you to our Roger Williams ticketing site. And the nice thing about that site is that most commercial vendors, when they have a conference and they have a ticketing website, the ticketing websites charge a ton of money, and they inflate the cost of the event. I think it's like 50 cents or something like that for us to do a ticket or something through university tickets. So, we can keep the cost. That helps us keep the cost down. So the site's not as maybe sophisticated as some of the other sites people might be used to when they go in and book things, but it's functionally, it works really well.
And if you have any questions, send an email to info@reefretreat.org, and someone will help you out.
That's right. And so just look at the packages. If you have any questions at all about the packages, people get a little confused because it's not the Marriott or the Hilton or something like that. And it's a dorm room. And so you have to choose. And my recommendation, based on what I saw last year, because I think all the suites are sold out already. My recommendation for people is the dorms are set up and there's a layout in there, but the dorms are set up. I think the best way to think about it is like an apartment style. Like if you lived with a roommate, right? They have their bedroom and you have your bedroom and you might be sharing a shower and a bathroom. And so that's the way the suites are set up. And I would recommend people, if they look at some people want to have a roommate because it saves a little bit of money, and then some people don't. And so the first package is the package that basically is the room by yourself, right? And you have your own private room, and that's $569 right now. I don't think it'll go up by the time this airs, and so that is kind of includes all your meals and everything. There's some extras that you can include, mugs, t-shirts, that sort of thing. And then we have a sunset cruise we do on Sunday night that and I don't think people realize how amazing that sunset cruise is. I have been doing that cruise when I have events for the last 15 years or so, and I never get tired of it. It is.
See, and here's
really
the thing
nice
about that cruise. It's not like you went to some thing in Sydney and then did, the last night of the conference, you and a few friends go and do a bay cruise. It's not like that. It's, we hired the boat for everybody. So it's like we all did that cruise together. So this whole, I keep overusing the term, this whole shared experience thing is something we're missing.
It's all kumbaya.
There's no kumbaya. It's more like fisticuffs most of the time. But we're together. We're together.
Yes.
And also make sure that we keep Andy healthy and alive. Because we need him for the show to happen.
Stay alive, Andy.
Actually, I think Lena's the one you really need. So
yeah, we need both of you, actually. Yeah. Great. So it's June 5th through the 7th.
They should arrive on the 4th if you have the time.
There might be something happening early. We'll let you know. So the 4th, that's the Thursday night. We'll get there on Thursday. A lot of people are getting there on Thursday and leaving Monday. Also, because if it's in Rhode Island, if you think you're gonna like fly in and fly out quick, it's not gonna happen. So you do need a little bit of travel time on either side.
Well, it depends on what your version of quick is,
You're not going to leave. First of all, you don't want to leave Sunday afternoon because you miss half the talks on Sunday.
And dinner and stuff. Yeah.
And leaving Sunday night, unless you're driving, is kind of hard because it's a bit of a drive to get to the airport, and there's limited flights because it's Rhode Island. And
we're on the East Coast too, Rich. So I think that's one thing people on the West Coast flights for us going west, you're not going to get a 9 o'clock flight going west very easily because that you're going to land in the middle of the, right. You're going to get it at midnight in LA if you left at 9.
Right.
So, so I think that's a big part of it is your evening flights are just very limited. And we have 2 really good airports, right? If you are flying domestically, you should fly into Providence if you can. Right.
Yeah. And then make it easy. The easy thing is to come on Thursday. And then if you get Sanjade or something, Friday morning, okay, fine. You can work it out. And then do the same thing. Leave Monday, leave 10, 11 o'clock on Monday and have a nice morning and get a breakfast. And then off you go to the airport. And it's just it's kind of like a civilized way to do a conference instead of trying to rush and shove everything in.
Well, yeah. And if people wanted to, for people coming, from the West Coast or fairly far away, Boston is Boston's a huge international hub. So, but you have to deal with Boston traffic. Now, the trains and things are running a little bit better, makes it a little bit easier, but you're still talking about a couple, if there's no traffic, I can go from the university to the airport in an hour and 5 minutes or something like that, but it could take a day.
Right.
And so,
so if you get there Friday at 4 PM, you're going to be driving for a bit.
That's correct. In fact, it's so bad that I had some cryogenically preserved barnacles arrive into Boston Logan at 3 p.m. And I was like, nah, I'll go get them at 9 p.m. Right.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't about to leave and try to get up there at that time of day. So, but what you could do is if you came into Boston and you came in early and you wanted to see the New England Aquarium, or, you could hang around Boston. Boston's an amazing city, right? And then you can slowly work your way down. If you wanted to do that, or you could come into Providence and get an Uber and you're, 35 to 45 minutes away from campus or something like that, right? And there's easier transportation to take. There's public transportation you can take. It's just going to take a while. You can't go quickly on public transportation. And
as it gets closer, groups will start saying, I'm arriving here, who's arriving then, and so carpools forming. But that's just part of the networking and the being together part is, as soon as you can, glom on with other people and start hanging out, because that's the point.
I got in through Providence and I Ubered there. Well, I got there pretty late, but I had a cool driver that was like Portuguese American. He was telling me about all this stuff where he was like inheriting this house in Portugal. But anyways, I like the drive because that town, it's like, I know it sounds so stupid, but it seems like a town that a Scooby-Doo episode would happen in. It was just like old. It wasn't Victorian, but
it is. No,
it's Victorian.
It's old. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. No, it is. We're my town that I live in is 350 years old.
Yeah.
And so, Bristol's right there. These are very old New England towns, right? And so they've kept their kind of character. And so the modern conveniences that people might want are not in that town.
Yeah, it was like a quaint town, like hugging the harbor.
Yeah, there's one hotel in the town. One of the reasons we're doing it in the dorms is you cannot get hotels this time of year. So we called them to see if we could get a hotel block, a courtesy block for people if they wanted to book it or something like that. And they're like, we're sold out. We have a wedding that week. It'd be, rooms will be $600 or $700 a night that week if somebody wants to stay there.
If you want to see the town, come in on Thursday and see the town on Thursday or Monday, because once Friday afternoon hits, there's no town time.
Yeah,
it's reef time.
Yeah, and Newport's we spend some time in Newport on Sunday evening, which is where the sailing cruise is. And Newport is an amazing like old sailing city, right? Pirate city and stuff, right? So it's like Newport is really one of the sailing capitals of the world. And so,
Narragansett Bay.
Yeah.
So cool. reefretreat.org, June 5th through the 7th. We hope to see you there. We got a few minutes, not that long. Let's talk some actual reef stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, my beef is that people are saying the tardigrades cause RTN.
Under what?
No, they don't, Rich. You made that up.
I totally made that up.
Okay. I
totally made that up.
I was like,
I was thinking back to what you were saying, that actual marine biologists get a little frustrated with hobbyists, and I was like, well, there you go.
Yeah. But I do think we may do another reef beef product where it's tardigrades,
water bears,
tank tardigrades,
reef beef water bears.
No, what's going on here? I've been just real quick. This anemone tank I've been working on.
Yeah.
Well, I went away for the weekend. And one of the anemones, the Hemphrichi anemones, looked like it was splitting, and I decided to leave it in there. Boy, was that a terrible idea.
It was dying.
Yeah. So I lost a lot of stuff in this tank due to ammonia. And I am just kind of gutted about it.
You don't have the turnover, do you, in that tank, because of the way your system's set up to be able to handle that kind of...
The way this one is set up. It's also like, there's the benefit in the lot.
Sure.
Had it been set up, I don't know what it would have done to the rest of the system. But the way it was set up, that ammonia is just like ammonia dosing. So I don't think it was. So far.
I was about to say, I feel like your system would suck that right up.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Maybe one little thing that I saw today that could be connected to this. I did end up doubling it. I added another dose pump. So instead of doing 100,000 milliliters a day of water exchange, it's doing 200,000. Also turned out that
you counted milliliters. That's very specific of you. Wow.
There was that's how the pump gets.
I realize that the interface on that's not made for what you're doing.
That's like 8 gallons, right?
Yeah.
No. That's more than 8 gallons. It's like 1,000 gallons.
It's
uh,
1,000 liters.
with 1,000 liters.
Congratulations.
Yeah, divided by 3.7.
Or did you say 100,000 liters?
Yeah, 100,000
Oh, okay.
mil.
Mil.
Oh, 100, excuse me. I'm
It's
sorry.
100
Look,
liters.
it's 100 liters, right?
Oh, so that's
So,
about how many gallons is that?
well, you just divide it by 4. It'll make it easier for you.
Go ahead.
25.
Yeah. So now I'm doing
Yeah.
50, which is about 100%.
Yeah.
And
You can't handle some kind of mortality event in a tank like that. You don't have the turnover to be able
no,
to do it. Yeah.
and there was the cascade, and
Yeah.
it's I understand that I'm working with anemones that we don't know enough about them, which is part of the reason I'm working with them. So stuff like this happens when you do that, but god damn, it was like finally into this realm where it's like, yes, I'm excited about this, and now it's like,
Well,
damn
They
it.
don't
you have
ship that
different
well either.
anemones in there, right?
No, they don't ship that well, and they're not that available, so it takes a long time to get them.
Huh.
And so I'm gonna try again, maybe one or maybe two more times. If that doesn't work, then I'll back off, because that if that happens more than once, you're doing something significantly not right. But I just should
Those
have
are
pulled the one anemone is the answer. The answer is when you're worried and you're leaving town, pull the anemone.
yeah.
So that's a bit of a bummer. Other than that, you can see that the tanks behind me that are usually lit up, they're covered now. Spawn is coming up, so I decided to start prepping for the spawn at the beginning of October. So I'll actually be checking for spawn October, November, and December. And that's what's going on here. What's going on with you, Ben?
So you remember a couple episodes ago where I lost the client and I was being
You
bummed
didn't.
about that?
You didn't lose a client. I mean, it's
I,
just
I listen to this stuff when it comes
yeah.
out, right? Like 2 minutes after it comes out, I often
Yeah.
are on a walk or something. I'm,
Well,
you know,
thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if you should be sorry about that one, right?
I'm not.
I listened to you talk about that one like 6 months ago, and then got the rotten canopy. I'm just like, man, you gotta let this guy go. I
Yeah.
mean, he's just like sucking the energy out of you. So
No, so when I lost it and I was like, "Oh, great," and you sort of get scared for a little bit, and that, man, you can call it karma or whatever, but this lady calls me and she has so filled in that gap it's not even funny. She's doing everything. We broke up the evolution of her tank into things that made sense. Filtration before lighting always makes sense to me, and she's just knocking these out. And, she's spending money. She's doing exactly. The funny thing is she has a sister that lives up north that is the one that got her into aquariums, and this sister has aquariums. And so some people could find it offensive or whatnot, but every time I talk to her, she's like texting her sister, like her sister was checking it out. And at first it was like, okay, but the
Mhm.
sister like loved it and loved my advice. And ask them
Oh.
where to get that skimmer. And what about this fish? And I have these. And I put a chalk basil in her. What's a chalk basil? Oh, I never really heard of the. And now the sister, there was one time where me and this lady had a miscommunication. She got a little sour at me, and it was a total miscommunication. And when we resolved it, and I went to her house, and she said she was laughing because she said her sister called her, and she goes, "Don't piss off this guy."
Ben is very into sisters
he's
this
he's
month.
he's an
Yeah.
artist. Don't make him mad.
No, so like at first when I thought, like, I felt like this sister was like double checking everything I said. Like, as long as you're above board, like, don't worry about it. And now the sister is like Team Ben. And so, I have this lady on lock, and she doesn't have a canopy rotting into her tank. She doesn't have a chiller slammed in a corner. She's making all these changes. She just today gave me the green light to address the filtration, so new skimmer and Genesis blocks and all this stuff. And then probably in a month she'll do all new lighting. And I've already been putting corals in there because it's tricky when you evolve someone's tank. Like, I'm such a nerd, like I like the equipment and all. I like all of it. But you do some equipment, and a client is like, I want to see something. So I've been
Man, I just spent $10,000 on equipment. Are there any
yeah.
more fish we can put in here?
Yeah,
Right?
and they're
Or like,
like,
yeah.
I just spent 10,000 on equipment, and the aquarium doesn't look any different. You
Panther
know?
groupers.
Yeah.
People
No,
love panther groupers.
I put like an orange Linkia in a week ago, and her husband were just freaking out on this one orange Linkia. And
Nice.
then today
Oh,
I
shit.
serviced it today, and I put a bunch of corals. But corals, I knew that would be okay until we finished evolving some other stuff. But and she was like, her husband's like a real high level engineer, and so she was like, couldn't wait for him to get home because he was just tripping out on one orange Linkia, and it's like today I just put like over $1,000 worth of corals in there, and she was like, "Oh, wait till he gets home." So they're
Sweet.
Yeah, and so now those corals you take out of other people's tanks.
I do a mixture of just because I feel like it helps grease the wheels. I have so many clients that have, tanks that stuff is just growing out of the top of it. So
Sure.
it's like naturally, and then I have tanks at home. So I cut stuff up and bring it over here. So I always grease the wheels in that, I ask them like, "Hey, can I bring like $800 worth of corals over?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah." But what ends up happening is like I'm also bringing you several $100s of corals that I cut just because like I have this lime green anacropora in Bates's tank this big and I have to cut it anyways, and then I've made little colonies at my house. So, I'll throw that in your tank and perpetuate these perpetuate it helps perpetuate clients. Because like that anacropora will end up growing large in her tank, and I'll end up greasing the wheels on the next one. Sell people a few things and give them a few things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I'm glad you got another client. The reason you were upset was the potential loss of income, really, right? That
Yeah,
was
but the
it.
situation was driving me batty.
Yeah. Well, they're driving you batty, and you also don't have, a bajillion clients. You're like a artisanal, bespoke,
Bespoke,
freaking
my favorite word.
freak cobbler. You're like,
Boutique.
let me make you the perfect shoe, and people are just like, I need some fucking shoes. You're like,
I
no,
just
it
want
must be
a shoe.
perfect.
No, it's off by a micron.
Yeah. So, well, that's much better than you starving. So that's good. Well, you wouldn't starve. You got 3 kids, right? So you'd go through them.
I'd eat them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why you
And
make
put them to
kids to
work.
eat
I
'em.
mean, it's Texas. They should be able to work. They're probably above
Yeah.
8 years old. So I mean,
They're in
yeah.
the fields baling the hay and
You could
milking
eat Grant's leg and he wouldn't miss it.
He
So
wouldn't even know.
he wouldn't even know. Andy, what's going on? Anything in the lab going on you can tell us about? Oh,
Well,
well, I was supposed to contact you about fish too, and I never did.
yeah. So yeah,
I'm
we
an
can
idiot.
we can ship you some fish.
I
Yeah.
would love that.
So we have we produce a lot of Yasugobis, right? So we've always produced a lot of those since about 2016 or so.
Were you the
we
first
just
to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I don't want to
Mitch
gloss over that.
Mitch
So
was.
it's okay. So when you raise thousands of these things, you get that one off that's a little different, right? And in a good way, different in a good way. And we took we have a pair now of these that are slightly different color pattern than you would see.
Ooh.
Like, yeah, so they just spawned.
Oh,
We walked by the tank the other day. They're in a reef tank. They're not in a broodstock tank. So they have a burrow down in the sand. And we walked by the tank. There's a cloud of larvae in the tank. And so we do what we never do, which is take larvae out of a reef tank and put into a larval tank because it's going to have hydroids and all this other stuff in there that's going to love all the copepods and everything we put in there. And so hopefully they're like 5 days old now. So hopefully they'll be okay. And we'll see. Question I have is like, do we see a higher proportion of that color pattern, right? And so just slightly different, and the interesting thing about the Yasugobis is sometimes in the lab, and it happened more in the past than it's happened recently because folks that run the lab, they know now what not to do. That's what I would do is what you don't do. And the dorsal fins, sometimes we lose them on the Yasugobis occasionally. Like the whole batch will just not have dorsal fins. They'll fall off. They'll fall off. Yeah. It's and so then they grow back, but sometimes it's so slow that we had shipped some out without dorsal fins. And I remember reading a blog article on Reef Builders when Jake Adams was like, and I'm right there with Jake's philosophy around deformities and things like that. Fish should look like their natural self in the wild, unless you design them not to. But I was just like, oh, so they grow those fins back so fast in a reef tank when they're acclimated. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and their fins are much taller than they used to be, because that's, we put these in there originally because that's why we had them. Why we didn't ship them out is because they didn't have their dorsal fin, and so we just hadn't shipped them yet because they hadn't grown them out. It's like, well, put them in there. Let's see how fast they grow them in a reef tank, and they grow them so fast. So so we're really excited about that. We've got some new fish to the lab that are spawning that we recently got in, and so they just spawned, and we're pretty sure it's them. I have to actually confirm that's who spawned, and then we'll be able to talk about that really neat fish and
I'm pretty sure I know what that is, and I'm over the moon.
Yeah, they're gonna be great. I was talking to Frank the other day about them, and Frank Banch the other day about them, and he was like, "Oh, those are kind of a pain in the butt." And I was like, "Great." So
they've got a 300-day
no, they're not. They're not. I would just get rid of them. They're not that bad. So it's like when the aquariums would call me because the guard meals are spawning. I'm like, well, good luck with that, right?
Luck with that, yeah.
I'm not interested in that. So, and we've got some cleaner wrasses now that are spawning pretty regularly and fertilized, which we've had a problem with fertility in those for a long time, and so I think we've got that fixed with so we've set up a new, and I don't think it was set up. It was probably not set up when Reef Retreat was here. So when you come, you'll be able to see the new cylinder tank we have attached to the 3,000 liter broodstock tank. So, and we've got some new projects happening in the lab with food fish. We'll be and a few other things. So, yeah, and then really exciting is I wasn't sure how excited I was when it happened, but our vice president of communications, her husband had a tank, real hobbyist, really. Like, I didn't realize how much of a hobbyist, but she had mentioned that she had a tank because they cover a lot of my research. And she always knew a little bit about fish. And she was like, well, we're breaking the tank down. You've got a lot going on. And she's texted me a list of these fish. And I'm looking at these fish and I'm like, wow, can I have that pair and that pair? And she was like, well, we really want them. We need them all to find a good home. And so I was like, I'll be there Tuesday night. And so we took all of her fish, and they're in quarantine right now. And we bucket quarantine. I've been bucket quarantining since the 90s or early 2000s. And so
bucket quarantine is the transfer method, essentially.
The transfer method, yeah. So and for somebody with a tank at their home, it's really easy to do because you would just get 3 or 4 buckets. And if you had a fish, that fish, you would take water out of your reef tank, put in the bucket with the fish. And then you move the fish every day, and you use your reef tank water for that move, and you just put new water in your reef tank. So it's getting like a small water change. And then we treat them with a couple prophylactics, General Cure, and then Riddick, and then freshwater bass kind of through that process. But that's the best way, as far as I'm concerned, to get an animal that's not going to have somebody else's things that they can, come into our systems. So.
I want to make sure we're doing it the same way I would do the bucket quarantine, which is if you don't have a wet table, right, which you probably do, I would take a bucket and I would put a heater in it, and I would put an air stone in it, and I would put a piece of furniture for the fish. What I like to use is like gray PVC or white paint or black painted PVC. I think white PVC is a bad idea, but I got to talk to Sarah about that, white PVC in quarantine, and how that's probably a terrible thing. But we need data anyway. So then every couple of days you just switch the fish
every day.
You do every day.
Every day. So
every day is the easiest way to do it.
Well, and I think the idea here is, and you're right, I have kind of a special setup. I have a climate controlled room that I built for this purpose. And so it's a small, narrow part of a walk-in refrigerator that we use for our climate control room. That's right. So it has its own drain that goes out to its own place, so it doesn't contaminate anything. And the idea is that parasites have fairly complicated life cycles for the most part. Brooklinella is the hardest one to deal with because it'll stay on the host, but Cryptocarya and Amylindinium are going to come off in the water column, right? And so the substrate tends to be a real problem, and it's impossible once you get these things in systems sometimes to really get them out, right? So if you transfer them into a clean bucket every day, you're breaking that life cycle.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and as long as you've got the bucket that's got some air, you don't care so much about the water quality because you're changing it every day or every other day.
Yeah.
The more you push it, the more you're pushing it. So be careful. And then you do that.
You need to do it every day. Yeah. Rich, you should just tell people that it's
easier if you do it every day.
It is. It's easier for you. I mean, I'm changing the water in 15 different fish every day right now myself
Yeah.
because I didn't want, I brought them to the
Now,
lab and I was like, surprise everybody, here's 15 new fish. And I was like, I'll do the water changes
You're
on
not
them.
really changing the water. You're moving the fish out of that
That's
environment
correct.
into
That
a
is
clean
correct.
environment, and then
Yes.
you're disinfecting the environment the fish came from.
Yes.
when
And
you
again,
feed them,
yeah.
would you feed them close to
Yes.
when you're going to move them? Because you wouldn't feed them
Well,
early in the day.
again, we grow our own adult brine shrimp. That's something else I've been doing for a very, very long time. So we grow our own live adult brine shrimp in the lab. And so we're feeding them live adult brine shrimp to keep the water quality high. But if we were going to feed them, like a minced fresh seafood product or pellets or something like that, depending on if they're wild fish and you've just got them in, the best thing you can do for fish, no matter whether they're look downs or these things, I've quarantined so many different fish that are kind of finicky eaters. The best thing you can do is get live food for them. So with look downs, for example, when I used to, in the early 2000s was building look down brood stock, I would get live shrimp. I would go to the bait store and go buy live bait shrimp and feed them that. And because they need to eat, right? So live adult brine shrimp is your best bet for almost all of your fish, right? That you have. And so if a store within 10 or 20 miles of you sells that, or you can get it, I would say if you have a really great, if you want to have great success, you should get some live adult brine. Get them eating and then swap them out. And then normally what we'll do is we'll take them out and we'll give them a freshwater dip. Now that is something you have to kind of be good at and know what to do to not do it incorrectly. But it's as simple as getting the temperature exactly the same and getting the pH buffer with a little bit of baking soda. It's not that hard, but then ease the fish into that, right? And then 5 minutes in there, or so 3 to 5 minutes in there, and then out into another container probably is almost all you need to do, unless the organism has like some kind of infection that it's carrying, right? And then but we generally use some praziquantel, and so General Cure has praziquantel and metronidazole in it. Metronidazole works really well on ciliated protozoans inside their body, right? And it'll also do some things with bacteria, and then praziquantel is for worms. So and then
Basically, Pro.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Pro is praziquantel in liquid for easy diluted for you to use. General Cure, API's General Cure is actually praziquantel and metronidazole in a powder. There's more stuff than that in there, but it's enough of a powder so you can measure it. And then you can do that. Works really well. So we buy these pretty large things of General Cure and go through a lot of that. But and then Riddick has always been my favorite treatment ever for fish, right? And it's very simple. It's formaldehyde and methylene malachite green, which are a amazing combination for dealing with parasites. It's probably the best combination I have used. You can't really use it in your display tank because it will stain your tank. Plus, it will kill all your invertebrates very well.
Who's making Riddick? Is that?
I don't remember.
That's not that crazy company, is it?
You can make it yourself.
Cordon.
Yeah, Cordon makes it. Yeah, and they've been making great products for a long time. So, but that to me, I've treated a lot of very sensitive fish. I am not a fan of treating fish with copper because it takes a while to build up and to work, and it also is really hard on fish. Where a low, the 15 parts per million of formaldehyde and or formalin, I think it's actually 15 parts per million of actual formaldehyde, and then malachite green is a good combination. And because you're changing the water every day in a bucket, you're not putting that into your system or into a tank. You're not worried about your biofiltration. That is a really powerful combination to kind of have a solid quarantine.
If you're doing a couple of fish, or 5 fish, or fish that you can even keep together in the bucket. I mean, I used 2-gallon buckets when I did it. I made a little water table because it was easier than putting a heater in each bucket.
Yeah, I have 3 pajama cardinals this big and a long-nosed hawk in one of those buckets, right? And they're fine. And I have a pair of really nice anthias in a bucket, and they're fine. right?
It's
And they're big amphibians. So
it's way easier than pretending like you're gonna maintain biological filtration in a
no,
QT
you're not.
over time,
And to
and
be
you're
honest
not.
with you, you know, like having and I don't think it's really, people don't have quarantine tanks really. They have kind of I would say an acclimation tank would be the best way to call it, what they maintain, where they may treat in there, but maybe it's a way to bring them in and see how they're doing before you put them in your main display tank. But I would want them to be in really good shape when it comes to whatever they came with, getting rid of that before I put them into that second stage acclimation tank. Now, a lot of people don't have the time for this, but I have a lab that's 2,500 to 3,000 square feet that has 100 and some tanks in it, that if we got cryptocaryon or amylidinium out in that lab, I'm shipping fish to public aquariums, I'm shipping fish out to LA every 2 weeks, so we just can't take that risk. And we molecularly test our water. We developed a molecular test for cryptocaryon and amylidinium and uranema, or scusacilia. It's not really uranema, but that's what the hobby calls it. But yeah, so we can see like sub-individual levels of this stuff molecularly. And so, we're pretty sensitive to not having that type of stuff show up. Occasionally it comes in with fish eggs or something, but we have to we have an isolated larval room for that. So if I was buying a fish, from someplace, other than observing it and watching it eat at the store and things, then that's what I would want to do, would put it in a, I think the black 5-gallon bucket is the way to go, or a transparent container, not a clear container, but a transparent container. Clear's a bit much for a fish, right? You don't necessarily, they aren't used to you yet. And so a black 5-gallon bucket with a clear lid is the best way to go. Let some light in and good strong aeration, and then temperature control, and then move them. Just move them every day.
Easy peasy. You can let it dry for 24 hours, and that should kill everything. That's what Noga says. I like 2 days. I like 2 days. I mean, don't just dry it. I mean, I wash it out, I rinse it out, and wipe it down, and then leave it dry. Don't just hope that drying it's going to do it.
There are some very challenging cysts to deal with. Like cryptocaryon cysts are just kind of renowned for their ability to hang out forever, for a long time. Ben, we use, I have, again, a specialized lab. So I have a 36 kilowatt heater that will deliver 85 degrees Celsius water to me at 10 liters a minute. And so, yeah, that's how I sterilize everything, is with heat. So we don't.
Matt Wandell was talking to me about that.
The
transfer method.
When we convinced the academy to do the transfer method, there were two ways that Matt and I recommended that they sterilize between transfers. One is to let it dry for 48 hours after rinsing, and the other was with heat. And somebody decided to go with bleach instead, and that did not.
The reason we don't use bleach. Well, the reason we don't use bleach in the lab is there's a couple things that happen that people get a little overconfident with it, and then you can also make a catastrophic mistake, which is you can leave some residual in there, and so you're worried about that. So then you end up dechlorinating it, and maybe use too much dechlorinator, and then that's not good in a static bucket. So it's not that I wouldn't use chlorine. I would just want to. I mean, I used to use chlorine actually in Florida when I was doing this. A friend, he had a pool, and we'd take all the, we did like, I think we did 89 or 100 and some clownfish or something like that at a time, right? And so we would throw all the buckets in his swimming pool, and then we would pull them out and rinse them, and then let them dry in the sun. But if you can use hot tap water, for example, and fill the bucket up with hot tap water, right? We're using pretty hot water to kill bacteria and things like that. But if you get your water temperature up above 45, 50 degrees Celsius or so, which is pretty hot tap water, for any period of time, will pretty much knock out any metazoan. So any animal that is not of some specialty living in a hydrothermal vent or something like that, or some worm seep or something, right? It's not going to be able to do very well in that. And so that's, to me, is the best way to go.
We were thinking about getting a sous vide to do that.
That would work. And that would be a safer way than saying taking a heater and plugging it in the bucket and walking away and forgetting about it, which, so I would caution people about, being safe with this stuff. But if you do wash it out with fresh tap water and let it sit for a while with water and wipe it out and then let it dry, the odds that you brought something forward, that's going to be a really special one that you're probably going to have on your hands and move around your house anyway. So, but you know, to me, that transfer method, and we wrote a Coral magazine article about it, I think in 2016 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good article.
Yeah, so that to me is the best way to quarantine fish for most everyone who's getting a couple fish here and there, which is what most hobbyists are buying.
I want to go before we go. I would just want to go back to the food thing, because we do the same thing, or I do the same thing, and we did the same thing. The idea, people get this idea that they want the fish to eat the food they want them to eat, which is nice. But when you got a fish coming into quarantine, you just want it to eat anything.
Yeah.
A fish is more likely to eat other foods if it's already full. If you're trying to like force orange spot filefish to eat pellets by only offering them pellets, you're going to have dead filefish soon, because that's not how it works. So, you know, brine shrimp is traditionally thought of as not a great nutritional food.
No,
but
that's not what we're using it for.
We don't
we're using
care.
It for,
you just want them eating. And then, man, do they start eating everything else as soon as they're, and then you start mixing stuff in with the brine. So they know when you come, and then they
learn what the tall vertical structure is for pretty quickly, and they'll associate with that. The other thing that works really well that people actually can get, depending on where you live, I bet almost everybody listening to this can go to their grocery store and buy live fresh mussels from Prince Edward Island.
That's a good point.
Right? Okay. So that's a fresh seafood product that has to be in really great shape for you to eat it, right? Because you don't want to get sick. And you can open that mussel when it's fresh very easily, because they're really thin. You don't have to have any special real equipment to do that. And then you can take the meat out of that, and you're going to have 2 abductor mussels sitting on each shell. And you just toss that clean shell with those abductor mussels in the tank for an angel or a butterfly, and they're going to pick at that.
Yeah.
Right. And that was one of those really amazing professional aquarist techniques I learned, when I was volunteering in North Carolina at the aquariums down there when I was like 15 years old or something. I was watching angels, like really difficult to, quarantine fish, come over and just nip on that little clam, abductor mussel or something. So you can cut that mussel up a little bit, and then you don't want that food to sit in there all night though, Ben. Yeah, you want to feed them an hour or two before you then change the water again.
No filter. You want them to eat and then move on to the new water. But that
And
makes sense
fish,
with me, the live brine, because you can put a food source in there that is not fouling the water. And like we said, while live adult brine, I've always heard that young brine are pretty healthy, but adult brine are sort of like a potato chip, like you were saying, you just want them to eat.
Yeah,
I mean, we're growing ours on like really nutritious marine algae. So but the ones you buy from the store are going to be grown on wheat and other so they're not going to be very nutritious, but they're really great stimulation and that's what you're trying to do, is stimulate them to eat, right? You don't need to worry about their fatty acid levels like right away. And if they're not eating anything, you're in trouble. So
speaking of brine, when I need to trap something now, I always pick up some live brine. I stick the trap in, and then I feed, first with the regular food, and then I go to the store and pick up the brine, and then I come home and put the brine in, and they almost always go right in, because but I don't feed live brine all the time, so it's really like a stimulant. It's like, holy shit, what is that? It's like, gotcha.
Well, we often will go through the evenings and feed our fish, live adult brine. Especially if there's a storm, or like we have any kind of event where we're only in like Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, because we're feeding our fish 4 or 5 times a day, but we have limited staffing on those holidays. That is the last thing we do, is load their tanks up, right? And then we just leave, and then they can eat their heart's content, and then we'll be back the next day. So
that reminds me, when I was young and I first started on the journey of aquariums, period, is I'd have like an Oscar tank and a 55-gallon aquarium, and you would just put like 200 guppies in there, and it's like he would just sort of administer himself for like a week.
Right, the self-feeder. So that's, I think that's a technique that people should probably work on, and the kind of the mechanics and the flow of like switching your buckets out. So it becomes because essentially what you're doing is you're doing a water change on your reef tank, and you're using that really great reef tank water, which is much better than new salt water because it's got age to it. It's going to be, the fish are going to do better on it, and you're putting the fish in that. So you're not wasting the water. You're just doing a water change on your reef tank. So.
Can't agree more. And on that note, thank you for coming on the show, Andy. Looking forward to seeing you in a week on Zoom again. But then in June, it'd be great. Reef Retreat again, reefretreat.org. And that's June 5th through the 7th of 2026. And we're looking forward to seeing you there. We'd like to thank our sponsors of this show, which are saltwateraquarium.com,
Champion Lighting and Supply,
and PolypLab. And we'll see you on the flip side. Thanks, everyone. Episode number 146 of Reef Beef, hosted by Rich Ross and Ben Johnson, produced by Snowman and Rich Ross, directed and edited by Snowman. We'd like to thank our Reef Beef Prime level beefers, Farhad and Joel Squirrels Reef, and our Gold level beefers, Rowan B, Robert S, Leslie S, Alfie, Ben J, Hannah, Francois C, Brittany, Scott C, James B, John W, Jim W, Adam S, and a Bay Area Reefers Club. Such idiots. I love it so much. Good.
Man, I can't wait. My birthday's June the 4th.
Oh, it's you and Sanjay's birthday again.
Yep. The birthday boys.
We'll have to let you
So
fight.
it's the 4th. So does it get earlier? No, it's always the 4th, right? So the days are sliding past, right? So it was Saturday last year. Is that
Sunday
what's happening
this
here?
time. Yeah.
It's
I think Sanjay's birthday's on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you better be careful what you say.
Oh yeah, I have to really watch out what I say with you two.
That's our job here, is not to make content, but to piss Snowman off.
Or you can tell us now. This won't be on the show right now.
Right. Well, you are brighter than us, so that's.
I don't know if that's true.
I'm the low man on the totem pole if we're shooting for that. Hey, Reef Beef.
Wait, Andy, do you have the dates on the top of your head for this show?
Man, you put me on the spot because I don't know all his bona fides.
Yeah, well, I wanted to see what you would make up instead of crying like a big baby that I put you on the spot. I thought you'd just roll with it and figure out a way through it, but no.
Well,